Water keeps you alive. Diamonds do nothing for your survival. So why does a diamond cost a fortune and a glass of water almost nothing? For centuries, the greatest economic minds on the planet had no answer. Not Adam Smith, not Ricardo, not Marx. Then one man solved it. And in doing so, he didn't just answer a clever riddle. He dismantled the theoretical foundation that Karl Marx had built his entire worldview upon. His name was Carl Menger, and most people have never heard of him. I'm Professor Finley, and today we're going deep on the man who founded the Austrian School of Economics, why his ideas were nearly buried by the academic establishment, and why they matter more right now than at almost any point in the last 100 years. Stick around. This one will change how you think about money, markets, and value, permanently. The year is 1840, and in a small town called New Sandez in what is now Poland, a child is born who will change economics forever. His name? Carl Menger. Menger's life is a fascinating journey from law student to revolutionary economist. He discovers his passion for economics in the lecture halls of Prague and Krakow. At the age of 27, he obtained his doctorate and immersed himself in the world of Viennese politics and media. But Menger wanted more. He was eager to unravel the secrets of economics. In 1871, he published a work that shook up the world of economics. At the age of just 32, he became the youngest professor at the renowned University of Vienna. Menger retired from teaching in 1903, quietly, without fanfare. But the school of thought he built didn't slow down. It accelerated. His students carried the torch. Eugen von Bohm-Bawerk took Menger's foundation and built on it a groundbreaking theory of capital and interest, explaining why waiting has a price and why future goods are always worth less than present ones. Friedrich von Mises sharpened the concept of marginal utility and gave us a term we still use today: opportunity cost. These weren't just followers, they were architects, and their work handed the tools directly to the next generation, to Ludwig von Mises, who constructed the full theoretical framework of the Austrian school, and to Friedrich Hayek, who in 1974 became the first Austrian tradition economist to win the Nobel Prize, recognized for his work on how markets process and distribute knowledge that no single mind could ever hold. So what makes Menger so remarkable? Not just the ideas themselves, but the fact that one person, working largely alone, planted a seed that grew into an entire intellectual tradition, one that is still alive, still debated, and still challenging the economic mainstream today. In 1871, Carl Menger published his groundbreaking work, Grundsätze der Volkswirtschaftslehre, Principles of Economics. This book marked a turning point in economics. In it, Menger presented a completely new view of economic processes. He focused on people as acting individuals and emphasized the importance of subjective decisions for the economy. The work was revolutionary because it broke with the classical theory of labor value and instead emphasized the role of individual utility. Menger explained how value is created and how prices are formed, not through objective factors such as production costs, but through the subjective assessments of market participants. His ideas were so influential that they not only shaped Austrian economics, but also influenced modern microeconomics as a whole. Menger's principles laid the foundations for a new school of economic thought and inspired generations of economists. With his groundbreaking ideas, Carl Menger laid the foundation for the Austrian School of Economics. This school of thought is characterized by a unique approach. It emphasizes the importance of the individual, entrepreneurship, and market processes. In contrast to other schools of economics, the Austrian school focuses on the subjective decisions of economic actors and their impact on the economy as a whole. Menger and his followers argued that economic phenomena cannot be explained by mathematical models alone, but require an understanding of human action. The Austrian school developed important concepts such as capital theory, business cycle theory, and the critique of central economic planning. Despite initial skepticism, this school of thought became increasingly influential and produced important economists such as Eugen von Bohm-Bawerk, Ludwig von Mises, and Friedrich von Hayek. To this day, the Austrian school offers alternative perspectives on economic issues and challenges. Menger's most revolutionary contribution, utility. He argued that the value of a good is not determined by its production costs, but by the benefit it brings to the consumer. What if the value of everything, your phone, your coffee, even your time, depends not on how much it costs to produce, but on what it means to you? According to Carl Menger, value is subjective. Different people value the same good differently because they have different needs, preferences, and circumstances. Menger argued that it is not the total usefulness of a good that determines its value, but the marginal utility of an additional unit. In other words, the value of each additional unit depends on how important it is for satisfying your most urgent remaining want. As you acquire more units of the same good, the importance of each additional unit tends to decline. Imagine eating chocolate. The first piece is delicious, the second is still enjoyable. But by the third or fourth piece, you may already feel satisfied. Each additional piece provides less value to you than the previous one. This is why someone will drop $500 on a bottle of wine they'll never open, and pay nothing for a glass of tap water they need to survive. Menger flipped economics on its head. Value isn't in the object. It's in you, in what you want, right now, given what you already have. That single insight didn't just tweak economic theory. It demolished the labor theory of value that Marx built his entire worldview on. And it quietly became the engine underneath all of modern microeconomics, whether today's economists admit it or not. And nowhere is this more powerful than in solving one of the oldest puzzles in economics, the classic value paradox. For centuries, thinkers like Adam Smith were stumped by a simple contradiction. Why does water, the most essential thing for human survival, cost almost nothing, while diamonds, which you could live without forever, command fortunes? If value comes from usefulness, water should be priceless. If it comes from labor, the math still doesn't add up. No theory could crack it. Menger could. His answer: you never value a thing in the abstract. You value the next available unit of it, given how much you already have. You have access to water all day, every day. That next glass? Nearly worthless to you right now. But the next diamond? Scarce, rare, almost no one has one. So that single unit carries enormous weight. It's not about what a good is. It's about what one more of it means to you, in this moment, in your specific situation. That's marginal utility. That's the solution. Clean, elegant, and 150 years later, still undefeated. Menger didn't just come up with new ideas. He defended them in one of the fiercest academic battles of his time, called the Methodenstreit, or debate on methods. But Menger didn't just revolutionize how economists think about value. He fought, and won, one of the most bitter intellectual battles in the history of economics. It's called the Methodenstreit, the battle over method, and it was brutal. On one side stood the historical school, led by the powerful German economist Gustav Schmoller. His camp believed that economics should be built from the ground up, collecting historical data, studying specific events, observing trade policies, industrial trends, regional markets. Their argument: every economy is unique. Every society has its own history, its own culture, its own logic. General theories? Useless, maybe even dangerous. Schmoller wasn't just an academic. He had institutional power. control over university appointments across Germany. If you crossed him, your career paid the price. He wasn't looking for debate. He was looking for submission. Menger refused. He believed economics wasn't a collection of historical facts. It was the study of something deeper, universal principles of human behavior, how people make choices, how they rank their wants, how they act under scarcity. In 1883, Menger published his counterattack, Investigations into the Method of the Social Sciences. His core argument was sharp. Economics must begin with the individual, with the acting human being. Not with aggregate data, not with historical trends, not with government statistics, but with the single person making a decision in a specific moment. He called this approach the foundation of what would later become praxeology, the formal study of human action. The idea that all economic phenomena, no matter how complex, can ultimately be traced back to individual choices made by real people with real goals. Schmoller's response? He refused to even engage with the argument seriously. He dismissed Menger publicly. The two men never reconciled, but history made its choice. The historical school faded. Praxeology, carried forward by Mises, Hayek, and Rothbard, became one of the most powerful frameworks for understanding markets ever developed. Menger lost the political battle. He won the intellectual war. The Methodenstreit wasn't just a nerdy academic feud. It shaped the entire direction of economics. Menger's insistence on theory, on the individual, on universal principles of human action ultimately won out. But it cost him. The historical school controlled German universities, and for years, his ideas were sidelined, dismissed, ignored by the establishment. He didn't back down, and the next generation made sure his work survived, carrying his ideas forward until they became impossible to ignore. Carl Menger never sought fame. He didn't build a movement on purpose. He just asked a simple question: why do people value things the way they do? And followed the answer wherever it led. It led to a theory of value that dismantled Marx, a method of thinking that outlasted an entire rival school, and a legacy that runs directly through Mises, Hayek, and Rothbard, straight into the economic debates happening right now: inflation, central banks, free markets, individual freedom. These aren't new fights. Menger started them. If this made you think, drop your take in the comments. And if you want to go deeper, next week we're following the thread straight to Hayek. See you there.